Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Digital Nomad World weekly series. I'm Becky, and I will be your host. Today, we're going to be talking about tips for handling stress on the road with my guest, Astrid Heystee. Astrid, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to see you all, and for all the listeners. Hello, I'm Astrid, and yeah, I really am really excited to talk about stress and how to reduce stress, especially while traveling.
Yes, for anybody listening or watching, I know that this is something I'm sure we've all dealt with while on the road at some level or another. So, Astrid, first of all, could you tell us about your background and how you became a digital nomad?
So I was for a long time in the corporate world. I was in marketing. I was in a publishing company responsible for an entire marketing team, and I basically did the entire transition from print to software. So big team, lots of stress. And at some point, I really, really was done with having stress. I attended three funerals of coworkers that were all stress related. And that was my, like, I don't want to have this life anymore where if this is, supposed to be the promised land of everything that we work towards during our education. I was like, okay, I need to find a different way. And I already did a world trip in 2010, 2011. I met my first digital nomads in 2010 in Melbourne, in Australia. And I remembered, like, oh, wait, there are people actually making money with their laptops, traveling the world. What if I could just say no to this office life and just, explore the world, travel, and work at the same time. And most of all, just create my own schedule so I don't have to deal with all that stress anymore. And that's what I've been doing. I jumped into this lifestyle in 2018. So pre-COVID, I did not know anybody in this space. I did not know anybody in person who was a digital nomad. So I went to Chiang Mai and in 2018, and actually that's exactly where I'm back now in Chiang Mai. So it's really funny to be full circle back in Chiang Mai, where my journey started. And yeah, I could have not predicted what life would bring me in terms of the digital nomad lifestyle.
Oh, wow. It's really nice to come back full circle. I know that feeling. So I'm wondering, do you remember back in 2018 when you were in Chiang Mai for the first time? How was your stress level then and compared to now?
It was interesting. I really had a feeling that I needed to unwork for a long time. So I was still trying to figure out how do I do this lifestyle. And I think I made all the mistakes. Of course, I knew backpacking. I did a lot of backpacking. So I looked at the map and I was like, okay, I'm going to do Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam in 4 months. And I'm going to, move every Wednesday and every Saturday, move to a new place because I want to explore, I want to travel. And of course, I quickly realized that maybe moving twice a week to a new destination is really not good for your stress levels, especially when you have a freelance client that is expecting productivity and to really, work with clients that are in a different time zone. So I think I made all the mistakes, and yeah, at some point I came to Koh Lanta with Cohab. And that was the first time that was the end of the trip. And that was the first time that I was like, oh, wow, I found a formula. I just need to go to co working spaces and then I can work, then I can focus.
Yeah, you mentioned how frequently you were traveling. I think it's interesting that all of us as digital nomads, I feel like we all start that way when it's our new lifestyle. And then so many people you just hear, yep, now I'm traveling once every 3 months, or I stay as long as I can in the same destination. So not surprised that once you found that formula, you were gonna, not travel so often. That's one of the
Yeah.
first tips I would say probably to handling stress on the road, right?
I did give myself some grace though, because for me it was an experiment, right? Because I didn't know anybody, I didn't know what I wanted. I just figured, okay, let's just experiment with it. And also, I bought an investment property just before I left my country, the Netherlands, because I realized that after my world trip, I actually had nesting urges, like, when you want to have. So I figured it might actually be good to have a place to go back to because I quickly realized like I want to have a balance. I want to spend time with family, but also want to have the ability to travel. So I was really inspired with remote year, which is no longer, but they had at the time a 12-year program, of 12, sorry, a 12-month program. And I was just like, okay, this sounds amazing, but I don't want to travel 12 months out of the year. I want to travel 6 months out of the year. I want to create, a winter escape plan, if you will. So I created a whole lifestyle plan, was very strategic about this whole thing. I mean, I did a prep for a year, basically a year and a half into this lifestyle. And I created this lifestyle plan. Okay, 3 winters away. First winter, Asia, the second winter, South America, and the third winter, Africa. Well, that didn't happen because, life, COVID, health, you name it. But yeah, it was really about testing out my lifestyle plan, if you will, and to see how do I do this new lifestyle when I'm in charge of my agenda, my productivity, my energy, and my stress level, and how can I do it in a non-stressful way? That was my experiment. And as soon as I came on Koh Lanta, an island full of palm tree, I felt so like I found finally felt like okay, this I finally found my place, right? And then I left because I had to go home because my
Yeah.
sister had a baby, and I wanted to spend time with a new baby.
Yeah, no, I think testing is really important because things that are stressful for one person doesn't make the next person up uneasy at all. So it's really, yeah, important to find we already know, I'm sure, what stresses us out, what doesn't, but when you put travel into the mix, new things can stress you out, I'm sure. That leads me to a question I had for you. Did you ever face significant stress while on the road? And can you tell us about that?
Well, I recall a moment. This is not in my digital nomad lifestyle yet, but while traveling, I was in New York and I was very close to missing my flights. And I remember that feeling of feeling so stressed just because I was perhaps going to miss my flight. In the end, I actually did make my flight, but the feeling of that massive amount of stress that I felt because I miscalculated the time and how long it would take to get from Manhattan to the airport, and the guilt that I was putting on myself, the blame that I was putting on myself by any critic that was super loud, judging me and slapping me internally in my inner world for not being on time. And it was, I realized later on, of course, in the moment you just feel that massive amount of stress, but later on I realized like, oh wow, this is all self-created stress because I experienced the time stress, but also the stress of having to deal with my own inner critic who really was not friendly to me at that point. And so that is definitely something that I learned from. And nowadays, if I look at where I'm now, like I have the most relaxed travel days ever because I just take so much time and I just completely let go of all the control and expectations and just go with the flow with travel. So yeah, I needed to have some, bad moments, if you will, to really learn my lessons. And I really spend a lot of time and effort to kind of like create this system for me, how I can reduce my stress to the lowest level possible. I just completed like 10 weeks of stress of travel, and I had two stress triggers on that entire journey, which was funnily both regarding luggage and amount of weight in luggage, because in Japan they're very punctual about how your carry-on is weighted. And that stressed me out to the max because I've never experienced that they would weight every single thing of your hand luggage. And in the end, I solved it by just spending money and checking in my even my little backpack, and I checked it in. But yeah, I definitely had a full spectrum journey of feeling super stressed. Um, to really, yeah, be very relaxed about travel now.
I'm so curious what you changed to not feel that stress. So let's go back to that airport moment. After that happened to you and you miscalculated the time, how did you change going forward, or what did you change anything permanently?
So actually, I figured out that I love working on airports. I am super productive on airports. So now, whenever I'm flying, I actually purposely am way, way, way too early. So I have so much time to actually work on an airport because I love that buzz of being in transit. And I am super productive now. I actually also work on flights because I do, for example, podcast editing or tasks that doesn't require any internet access. And I love it because everybody else is just kind of like you wasting their time. And I am super productive in those environments, which is surprisingly weird, but I guess that's how I roll. But figuring out how what kind of environments make you productive and to roll with that and then to add that to your travel day. Yeah, that was one thing I changed for sure. And yeah, so being really on time and also seeing it as milestones. So I just see, okay, I checked in, that's checkbox. Going to security, checkbox. So I always get like mental tasks that I just check whenever I complete a milestone of that travel process and just completely surrender to whatever happens. I had so many flights that were canceled or delayed, or, I slept in airports because I missed connections. And I really realized like all the stress we put on ourselves, most of it is solved either by money or just by letting it go and realizing that you have no control over the situation and just to go with the flow.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about that money side when you were talking about like, oh, the luggage situation and I just paid more. I've done that so many times as well. I've learned, I don't often have to pay for luggage I don't expect to pay for. And there's always that initial moment of stress, right? When it happens, it was unexpected and you're like, oh man, because you feel like in a way you're getting scammed or they shouldn't be charging you like this. But there are rules, and a lot of us try to think we can get around it or skirt it just enough to get an in and not pay. But you're right, money, if you just look at it like paying this, something maybe in the future will come back to me, I'll get more money. It helps me to rationalize what just happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how that works with, there's rules, but then the rules change all the time. And that's like when I got stressed, is like, the unexpectedness of like, oh, actually, I cannot get, maybe I cannot get my hand luggage on board and I have a short flight. With all the labeling of luggage, etc. So sometimes it's having those thoughts of like, okay, can I actually get my stuff on board? Uh, that was the most stressful part of the entire 10 weeks of traveling, right? So in hindsight, yeah, I can really say that I really don't stress about travel anymore.
That's great. I would love to hear more of your tips for handling stress while traveling. Are there any more that stand out that have really helped you?
Well, I think what I realized the most is besides time pressure, and that's something, again, a lot of people put a lot of time pressure on themselves, right? Because they might have a call that they have to attend, or they have a meeting with a client on a travel day, or they have something that has a deadline on their travel day. And I completely changed my agenda in a way that if I have a travel day, so if I'm literally transporting my body across the world, across time zones, I clear my agenda of all responsibilities that requires somebody else or somebody that's depending on me. So for me, that means closing my coaching again agenda, but also letting people know like, hey, I'm in transit, I will not respond. I put up my out of office as well, so people know, okay, I'm in transit and I'm gonna not be available to them at that point. And that gives me space to do work that I want to do and do very small tasks that I can just check off, but requires no priority or urgency to it. So really scheduling my work week around those travel days where I can do work if I want to. Again, I'm super productive during those days, but I'm not, there's no pressure from anybody else on my agenda or on myself. So that was one of the first things that I did to kind of combat that time stress and the pressure of the expectations. And another thing is to really work with the self-imposed stress, because I learned how I did a lot of self-development work. I mean, human design came on my path. There are so many different tools that I use now to calm my inner world and to calm my mind and to calm my inner critic. That really helped me to, yeah, not have those judgy thoughts, no shaming, no blaming, that like the inner beating up of the inner world is not happening anymore. And yeah, that really, really helped me in becoming way more calmer and just be very go with the flow, especially on travel days.
Yeah, that's so, so valuable. Do you have any tips for people that do have to take frequent business trips? I feel like this would be something, I mean, I'm sure they get used to it, but could be something where you start to feel really disconnected from so many people and just always moving your body, like you said, one place to another.
Yeah, I think time zones is really a big thing. People underestimate the time zones and how much it affects your body. I mean, we both know each other from the Nomad cruise, which is super nice because every day you have 25 hours in a day and you really slowly go to all the time zones. But if you're taking a flight, your body and your rhythms are messed up, right? Your circadian rhythm is completely confused. And especially if you do short trips, like a business trip. And I used to work in the business travel world, so I'm very familiar with that world as well. Yeah, they might go for 3 days to a different destination across the world and then come back. So sometimes it's even better to kind of stay in the time zone of your normal location because your body is just not able to adjust. So they say that for every hour you are, changing in a time zone, you need 1 day to recover from that. So if you have a flight of 6 days, 6 hours, then you need to recover for at least 6 days. And people don't really take that rest. They just go, um, have everything planned, especially when you have meetings. But yeah, the body definitely suffers from that. So taking rest afterwards, and kind of planning in rest, and also kind of taking some time to recover, especially going from if you do a long distance flight from especially from Asia back to Europe, right? That is such a massive amount of change. Or yeah, so it definitely also comes down to planning your agenda in a way that you have the time to rest and to prioritize rest as an active state of being.
Yes, I think I hear it's a lot about, building in time and maybe building in expectations. Like I'm thinking for me, it might be helpful to have like $100 slush fund or something that I'm already allocated for what might happen at an airport or what might happen somewhere. And if that's already built into your thinking, then maybe it's not going to be as stressful if something happens like that.
Yeah, and it definitely sleep is so important. And that's the beauty of a system like human design that I'm working with. It's a modality, but it's funny how such a modality can actually show you what the body needs, what kind of sleep do you need, and how you're wired energetically. And if you know that information, you can actually do something with it, right? It's not that it's dictating like this is how your life should be like, but you can experiment with it. And for example, when I was traveling with a friend, she had a very different way of how much sleep she needed. I generally don't need a lot of sleep. Also, I cannot ever sleep on airplanes. Unfortunately, I'm very jealous of the people who can, but I can't. And but knowing also what your travel buddy, how they operate and how they deal with situations like this and their sleep patterns and communicate about that, that is so powerful because there's so much friction and in miscommunication about expectations when you're traveling with somebody else. Whereas if you just know this information and you just accept, okay, this is how this person is wired, I am differently wired, and that's completely okay. But you can actually reduce a lot of friction in your communication, especially within relationships and with your relationships with your travel buddies.
Yes, we've unlocked a whole new category of travel stress when you travel with other people. That is true. I had a friend once tell me that he likes to have a talk before every trip he goes on with his friends and ask what are your expectations for this trip? And then he shares his own, and he says that's very helpful for reducing the stress and the friction that might occur.
Yeah, it's all about if you know what your needs are, if you're in tune with your body. A lot of people are still in their heads, right? They don't even feel what their body needs. Sometimes their bodies might scream at them and they have no clue. Sometimes it's just, they haven't drink water enough, or they ignored certain things, certain alarm bells in their body just because they want to finish an email, right? They didn't go to the toilet because they just want to finish this one email, and then their body is just like getting really frustrated, just because the body is not heard in that sense. And I think the more you get in tune with how your energy is, and actually feel what you feel and also feel your emotions, right? It can be so emotional to travel because you're not only exposed to your own emotions, but also to this mixed bag of emotions of everybody who's in transit as well. And it can be a lot to travel around a lot of people. So really to take care of protecting your energy in that sense is so valuable for having a good experience while traveling.
Definitely. I'm wondering now about technology. Are there any apps or anything that you use that you feel has really reduced your stress? For example, I like to use the reminders function on my iPhone to set all these reminders of things I need to do because I find it hard to keep everything in my head, and that has really helped me to not, for example, forget when the flight was going to be or, get to the airport too late. How about you? What is helpful for you?
Actually, I try to not use my phone that much. Of course, there's messages, etc. But the most helpful tool is actually music for me because I'm a very auditive person. So I have very calming music in my ears, especially on these places where it's super loud and super busy and there's so much going on. I put on this music that is Hertz frequency. It's the solfeggio tones. So that's like very calming music, or actually Reiki music, to really kind of create a sense of calm in my ears. So that is something that I definitely use a lot while traveling.
Yeah, I'm with you on the not being able to sleep on airplanes. But I find if I download some podcasts in advance, especially podcast hosts that sound particularly soothing to me, I can kind of sleep for 20 minutes with them. But, watching a movie, that's a totally different experience. So the music and the auditory journey you can use to help yourself. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely a good tip.
yeah. And also scent. So I usually travel with something really nice smelling. So that's also to work with the senses while traveling. Yeah, just to have something that yeah, that you can just use the senses to kind of calm yourself. So have like relaxing serums and stuff like that. Earplugs, very important. Earplugs is
Yes.
everything. Yeah.
Yes, I use these. They're very expensive and they're actually discontinued. But these headphones that play white noise in your ear, and they've helped me so many nights in unexpectedly loud Airbnbs or just to have that constant sound. So I know some people travel with a white noise machine, and
Yeah.
anything you can do to keep that environment stable for you is definitely gonna, as you mentioned, help your sleep. It's very important and handle your stress.
Yeah. Yeah, and the funny thing about the white noise is for some people that works perfectly, and other people like me, for me, that stresses me completely out. So
I
everybody's wired differently.
Yes, I love these headphones because I had an ex-boyfriend who was similar to you with that. And the white noise is in my ears, so I'm also not inconveniencing someone who I'm traveling with. And there's an alarm function in the headphones so I can get up and not disturb someone as well if we're, having to share the same space.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, we got to but that's coming back to experimentation, right? Everybody's different. It's a game of figuring out what works for you. How do you want to create your lifestyle? And that's, I think, as a digital nomad, we have so many tools that we can work with. We're so privileged that we actually have the space to experiment, because a lot of people don't really have that option to play out different scenarios, to experiment, to go to different countries and to test out all these different things that may work for us or not. But even to have this option to experiment, I think that is something that we sometimes take for granted, but it's so beautiful to create a lifestyle that works for you, right? And everybody's different. There are no rules. You can make up your own rules.
Yeah. I was thinking of one more thing that really might help people. It's helped me a lot with stress, related to your phone, but not constantly using it. Have you used the eSIMs that are now becoming much more normalized? I think it was so stressful for me when I would land in a new country and not have data right away, but I didn't want to pay for like a plan tied to my home country. For a while, I didn't have a home country. So I really love that you can now just download the data even before or right when you get to airport Wi-Fi and just go. It really helps my process.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I traveled the entire Australia and my entire world trip. I didn't even have a smartphone yet, right? So I'm also very still old school, traveling with maps and everything that's not related. But yeah, I think the iPhone definitely changed everything. And funnily enough, I was working in the travel space and I did this young professional project. And this was 2007. And we predicted, we had this board meeting with the CEO and presentation of our project where we say, the phone is going to change everything in the travel sphere. And we still had these blueberries, right? We just had Bluetooth. And the
Very.
CEOs, yeah, the CEOs, they just laughed at us a little bit and they didn't really take us seriously. They're just like, well, I think people will still use laptops, in a couple of years, but thank you so much for your effort. This is 2007. And we predicted this whole trend report about, the use of mobile phones in the business travel world. Well, of course, now if you don't have your phone, you're completely lost, right? So I definitely agree with the eSIM. It's such a game changer that you can just, have data and also stay connected with the people back home and to really connect with people globally. Like I can send a message across the world instantly and I get instantly a reply. So that means that the world has just become super small because it doesn't really even matter where you are, you can still connect to everybody at the same time. So yeah, it's fun to play around, but yeah, totally agree. It's so nice to have that eSIM available nowadays.
Yeah, you just reminded me of something I did recently for stress. So I, now we have WhatsApp, which I think was such a messaging apps like this that you can call for free
Yeah.
anywhere in the world. Those are real game changers. But I found recently that if I leave like my home where I'm based normally, if I don't set some boundaries with WhatsApp or with these conversations, I don't feel like I'm on any kind of vacation or break because I feel like I'm still in the same place and I'm getting the same messages. And so I've actually told a few people at Christmas time, let's reconnect after the new year, kind of saying, don't send me messages while I'm away, or I'm not going to feel like I'm really relaxing. And I didn't think I was going to have to do that, but I feel like it's getting to the point where it's important for some situations.
Yeah. You mentioned tools. There's actually one app that I found really useful in this communication with people from back home. So there's an app called Polar Steps, and it's because I mean I share a lot on social media, but still I don't want them to know everything, right? Because that's open to everybody. So for my close circle, family, friends, I actually use Polar Steps, and it's such a good app where you can just have some pictures, have a story, and then you have like a red dot that is following your GPS. So that gives some reassurance to parents that there is some I am somebody here on the earth. But it's such a good way to get the message out, and to kind of share your travel journey with people from back home, because they want to follow you in real time. But what I found is that as soon as you come back home, yeah, there's really not a lot of space to talk about your journeys, because yeah, you might say like, hey, how was it? And you get maybe like 3 minutes to talk about it, and then the conversation shifts to the here and now again. But by traveling, by sharing it in real time, yeah, there's actually people who yeah, who kind of follow you along, and they can then look it up if they want to follow you. So I share my message and I just push it out, and then I don't feel the obligation to reach out to everybody saying like, hey, I'm still here. So yeah, I just say, here's my link to my Polar Steps. If you want to follow me, this is where I'm going to hang out. If not, send me a voice note and I will get back to you. But yeah, I found it really helpful to just share it in real time, and to use that app as a way to kind of communicate with people from back home.
Yeah, that's also a great way, I think, to get your own space where you're enjoying your trip, but like they're also able to follow, but not so closely that you're not maybe in the moment on your trip sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
The final thing I have, the final technology that I have to share, and I'm sure you use this as well. It's really changed the world is Google Translate because
Oh
that
yeah.
has now smoothed out a lot of situations where it could have been very stressful. So I had my eSIM giving me the data to use Google Translate. Or you can, I think, sometimes download an offline dictionary if you don't want
Yeah.
to be so into your the phone or the data usage. But yeah, that's really I wish I'd had more time to travel before all the technology kind of got to the forefront of our travel lives, but it does reduce the stress, I have to say.
Yeah, and especially in Japan, it's such a game changer, right? Because countries that you normally might be a little bit scared of going because of the language barrier now become super accessible, because you can just speak into it, they translate it. The audio function works, especially the picture function, where you can just make a picture of the menu and have it translated. Oh my God, it's such a big difference. So yeah, I've heavily used it in specific countries in the world.
Yeah, I can't imagine some of our, but yeah, you wonder how like whimsical your experience may have been with some added stress if you hadn't had that technology. Unfortunately, we're not going to know unless we go again and put our smartphones away, but it's going to be, and then they might get their phone out, right? It's like sometimes hard to
Yeah,
avoid. It's this
I rem
technology.
I remember traveling. I think it was in Indonesia back in 2008. 2008, yeah, where I had this little tiny booklet with like hand positions and just food items, so we could just point to things, and then instead of communicating it, just communicate it by pointing to different images in that little booklet, and that's how we got along.
Those were the days, huh?
Those are the days. Yeah,
We have
yeah,
less stress, but in some ways we have more stress with technology. But thank you, Astrid, for sharing your experiences and helping us think about this issue of like how we can manage stress. Because I think so many times we're handling stress that we really don't need to be dealing with. There's, like you said, a lot of ways we can think ahead and prepare our travel to be much more stress free.
yeah. And I think the more you do managing the self-imposed stress, how I call it, the better your experience is going to be. Because if you have a quiet mind and you have a calm body, then you don't get faced by these unexpected things. So the more shadow work or inner work that you do, because people, you can run away from something or you can run towards something, but you always take yourself and your inner baggage with you, right? So if you work on your inner backpack and to kind of unload some of those things that you're dealing with, the quieter and friendly your inner critic becomes, and yeah, you just the stress kind of just vaporizes in that sense.
So important to remember. Well, Astrid, is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we go?
No, I actually do have an ebook about stress. Now that you're mentioning it, if you are interested in reducing stress, yeah, there are so many ways that you can go about it. I had to learn the hard way to listen to my body and get out of my mind and into my body. And that's what I do. But yeah, just I also have a podcast that you can listen to if you want to reduce your stress. It's called Travel and Work with Human Design. And that is one modality that I am using to help you manage stress. But yeah, it's really all about if you want to do the work, literally do the inner work, it's going to be a game changer in your travels for sure.
Oh, yes. We're going to be happy to share the links to those in our description. So if you guys are listening, check it out on Spotify or YouTube. And if people want to follow you, where can they go?
So I call my company Palm Tree Moments because I'm from the Netherlands. When I see a palm tree, I have no stress. So I think we all need more palm tree moments. So you can find me on Instagram at palmtree.moments.
Great. I love that idea. I wish I could see more palm trees right now. Well, thank you, Astrid, so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, and thank you for listening. And yeah, it's really cool to be in your ears. And I wish you happy travels.
You too.